to another episode of another Zelda podcast. My name is Kady Roberts, and I am here with my co-host
David Geisler.
Yay!
I think we're getting it.
Yeah, I never know if I should say my last name or not.
Do I always say David Geisler?
I don't know if you do or not. That's why I'm like, I don't know. But we're here.
No, let's circle back on this. Let's have a little board meeting right now here on the air, yeah.
Is it worth saying your last name, or does that seem too formal with the listeners?
Hello there, David Geisler here.
See, you have a cool name, though.
David Geisler?
Yeah, I have a really boring last name. I have a very normal last name.
I don't know, Roberts is good.
I want to say boring, but it's very normal.
Roberts? Do you know what it stands for at all or anything?
Maybe I was a robber in my past life. I don't know.
I do know what Geisler stands for, or what it means. My mother's 100% Polish and my dad's 100% German. So
Yeah.
Geisler is a German name. Do you know what it is? Have I told you?
No, you have not.
Geisler is German for goat herder.
See, I love that, though. The reason I had that big sigh when you're like, I have like Polish family and like Germanic.
Yeah.
I had this whole conversation with my roommate yesterday. Her last name was Blaskovich. Very cool.
Yeah.
And her family is like Croatian descendant. So like in Italy. And I was just like, it's so boring for me talking about myself because here's the thing. Everyone has this cool like heritage, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has cool heritage. I do not have. Maybe I do, and I just don't know, it yet. But from what I know of my heritage, is my family is from Britain, came over here on the Mayflower,
Yeah.
and we live on the farm back in Michigan, the same place, for 150 years.
Oh, it's the same farm?
The same farm that they landed in.
They just keep handing it down generation to generation? Do you have like a super old cellar or anything underneath the house or anything like that? Like, are there remnants still of the original
There
farm?
are some remnants, yeah. But we had to make a new house because the original one had to be condemned.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is like everyone's like, oh, we have like this heritage or this descendant. I'm like, I am, as far as I know, half British and maybe half like Scandinavian. So I am white and even whiter. And we stayed in the exact same spot my entire life and my entire family's life. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Maybe I'm stretching. I don't think I am, but like that's also kind of cool that you're like literally on the land that your family started with, and I guess it's getting handed down.
It's cool because like it's like 150 acres or something.
Well, now here's the real question.
Yeah.
Is there any plans for you or your brother to continue that land when your parents pass?
That has been a huge topic of discussion.
This is not the Another Zelda podcast anymore. This is now the I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, family
psychology
squabble.
of life and times.
I don't know. As far as me and my brother right now, we think that we do want to keep it in the family, but we might just use it as like a Airbnb or something because
that's fair.
Neither of us don't see ourselves living there.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had my dad's side, their family, the Arns were big milk. They had milk farms over in Prairie du Chien, which is along the Mississippi River in the southern part of Wisconsin. And so for a couple generations, they basically just had dairy farms. And then my grandma was faced with that choice when her parents passed. And I think they had 4 kids, and they had to decide were they going to sell the land or not. I think they ultimately chose to sell it, but it's still a little like I had Christmases in that farmhouse when I was a real little kid, and I like when even these days when I find myself in Prairie du Chien again, you can kind of see the bluffs that the farm was on. Because it was a dairy farm, you didn't really need fields. You needed fields to feed the cows. Yeah. But the cows themselves, they would roam up into the literal like bluffs and stuff like that in this land because it was all cut down from the river. But anyway.
Yeah, it is cool because the land is big enough. There's technically like 2 properties there. Yeah. And my this is on my dad's side. My uncle lives on the other property. But they have like trails back there that my dad kind of like made for like 4-wheeling and whatnot. And you can just see all the old equipment that just like they just left out there.
I mean, what are you gonna do with it?
So it's like old plowing equipment and stuff because it's just all farmland. And I grew up just in a family of farmers, so really cool.
Is your farm an active farm right now?
Yes, but not within our family, because right now we lease out the land
Okay.
for neighboring farmers to use.
Well, if I may, I feel like that transition into maybe having the house or something like that be a bit of an Airbnb or reinterpreting some of that seems like it might be a decent trajectory.
Yeah. Growing up though in the old property, we were farmers. We did goat farming for a while,
Yeah.
which was cool, and did stuff for fair animals. We had like 30 something animals at one point.
Man alive.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's cool. Anyway.
Well, that was a little bit of a deeper intro than we usually do, but that was kind of fun.
Here's my entire life.
What are you doing with yourself?
You know, man.
Let's just really get into it.
Yeah. No, but today, completely different topic of discussion.
Yeah.
We are going to be, well, actually,
I don't know. It's like
really.
handing things down the generations.
It's handing things down the generations, and it's everything to do about nature and like the outside.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I did a great job leading us into this.
That was one of the best intros ever.
So we're talking about today, I think it's going to be called something like the evolution of the Kokiri, but we're going to be talking about the Kokiri, the Koroks, and I also want to touch on at the beginning just a little bit about the Kikwi.
Yeah, so in my research too, I realized that they're not really part of it.
They're not a part of it, but I do want to touch on that.
Yeah.
But before we do that, listener feedback time.
Listener feedback.
Woo-hoo.
Whoa, that was great. We just started a thing.
Cool. Do you want me to get it started, or do you want to start?
Why don't you go first with whatever, what is this one? Video. This is a YouTube comment, I
Yeah,
believe.
it looks like a YouTube video. So it says, anybody could be an echo. And it's by...
Oh, do you know what this is? This is a comment on one of our YouTube shorts.
Oh.
So most recently, we had a YouTube short video that popped up. It was a couple months ago, actually. And it was you talking about the moment of when we found the Fazir or whatever in the echo space or whatever.
There, yeah.
And you were like, and anyone could be an echo. That was one of the shorts that I released. And so this is a comment to that clip.
Awesome. So this is from Just A Mags. It says, "Oh my goodness, I'm glad to see you're back. I've been looking for the new season, if there was one. Glad there is, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green hearts."
Yeah, awesome.
So, yes, we did take a break for a while, but we are back and we are stronger than ever.
That's right. Thank you, Justin Meggs, for the comment and checking out some of our new content that we're trying to put out. Very cool. I will move forward to I believe this is an Instagram, it might have been a DM actually, to our AZP, Another Zelda Podcast account. This is from Armitis _
Artemis.
Oh, my dyslexia is kicking in there. I'm sorry. _Artemis _208 _ Hey AZP squad, been listening since 2021, but I've been getting back into the podcast a lot lately, listening and re-listening to episodes while working at my job in a bakery. Cool.
Ooh.
I grew up playing Zelda games with my sister, and we have many discussions to this day about Zelda lore and things we love about the series. I always tell her we should make a Zelda podcast too, because we have a lot to say, LOL. Maybe you should.
Yeah.
I recently moved closer to her, and we have been playing Twilight Princess HD on her Wii U. Every time I listen to the podcast, I get the same comfortable and happy vibes as I do when my sister and I engage with the series. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for everything you guys do and for all the hard work. I'm sure it takes to put on a show like this. Can't wait for more content. 3 heart emojis and a sword and an arrow, a bow and arrow. Awesome. Well, this is Artemis _ 208. We ended up messaging a little bit because Artemis, I can't remember if it's, oh boy, I'm really getting caught off guard here. Her name's Kayla, and she also does this thing where she's taking Deku stickers and kind of like pseudo sticking them all around her town and her city, and then taking pictures of them in her account. And now I should have done my research here and find it, but I'll have to circle back. But we follow her account now.
Oh, that's so cute.
And of the pictures she takes of the different Deku stickers. And I actually asked her, I said, do you make them? I said, no, I order them, but it's a whole... If you go to her Instagram wall, it's like, just a bunch of Deku stuck on little trash cans here and there in the city and stuff like that, or little, posts and things. It's a lot of fun. And so I wanted to mention that. Why don't we go to the next one here? I can't remember the account. I'll check it on the break.
That's okay. We'll go over. I think this one's on Spotify. I could be wrong though.
Well, if it's Best Zelda Podcast, it's
Yes.
definitely Apple Podcasts.
That's
here.
Apple Podcasts. Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
tell by the gray in the background.
So this is by Sonic Link 155. Amazing combination of Nintendo and Sega.
I think we've done this one like a couple times.
Oh, did we do this one?
We did this season.
Okay. We can move on. I can grab another one really quick.
It's the one where Link marries Malon.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't delete it.
I was like, that one looks kind of familiar. I don't know.
I think we literally did it in the Ocarina of Time episode.
Well,
Sonic Link, thank you so much. It's okay. If you want to just do one more, we had that longer intro. If you want to do this last one here.
I just grabbed another one.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll vamp for you here a little bit.
All right.
Over on Spotify, specifically for the episode The Gerudo from Season 6, Episode 24, we have that one guy left us a message, or rather a comment on the episode, and it says, "Hey there, AZP. I found this podcast after I started playing Breath of the Wild, and I'm loving it. Since then, I have started playing Ocarina of Time, and it's so fun. Hope there is more content coming." 4 green heart emojis. Well, there definitely is more content coming. We're also enjoying Ocarina. I guess this person's a little bit similar to you. Breath of the Wild first.
Yeah.
A couple games, and then Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it's been really nice seeing, because I go through some of the comments on like the YouTube and that kind of stuff too, just how many people are having a similar experience as to me. I don't know. It's cool getting to have that community, because I mentioned this before, but when I first got into the Zelda games, and you were doing like the interview, trying to see like, okay, who are we going to bring on this podcast?
When I was doing the interview? Oh, when we had the literal casting call?
Yeah. And me being like, okay, well, I do like Zelda, but I've played like 2 or 3 games, and like, whenever you're getting into something new and there's such a big devoted fandom, and it's the same thing too when I went to Zelda Dungeon for the first time.
Yeah.
You feel so nervous the entire time because you're like, in a lot of other spaces, I have not experienced this at all with Zelda, which is what I'm getting to. But, like Marvel, I'm a big Marvel fan, but it's like, okay, well, you're a Marvel fan, but have you read the comics? But have you done this?
You're not nerdy enough, or how nerdy are you? It's like a competition.
Do you really know? Yeah, exactly.
Which is just as toxic as the other direction, if I may.
Oh, absolutely it is. So seeing other people having this experience has been really cool. And then also coming into this where there are people that are devoting their life to Zelda and being so open arms and so excited, not hearing, oh, you haven't played that yet, but being, oh, you haven't played that yet. Let me lend you this. Let's talk about it. Like, let's do it. Yeah. It's great. It's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I think that is generally the experience I experience with Zelda fans as well, and I think it's just an absolute blast. I'm not sure what that implies on a deeper level of people who like Zelda, and may not at all, but it certainly is a pleasure.
Yeah. So I did quickly find this last one. I don't know what this is on. I'll show it to David really quick.
What the heck?
Yeah. I don't know.
What a screen grab. Sent us a message. That might be a Facebook or an Instagram direct message.
Okay. Well, it's from George Ogletree.
It also could be our actual website. I'll try to do a little bit better with these screen grabs and have it reference at least where these things are coming from.
Yeah. It says, "Hey guys, I've been out of the loop for a while. My band's been touring and I've been writing a book." Very cool person.
Yes.
"Everything is slowing down a bit, so I immediately dove back into the world of Zelda and picked right back up where I left off. I just started back listening to the podcast again, and lo and behold, the first episode I heard was you addressing my question about N64 mapped controllers for the Switch."
Oh, you grabbed this one. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
"It was like a sign from Hylia. Since I'm picking right back up where I left off, the information you provided is still very much relevant. Huge thanks, and I now have a Retro Fighters Brawler 64 in my shopping cart. Love you guys, smiley face."
Nice. I hope it works out for you. I mean, it is a third-party company, but I'm still enjoying my Retro Fighter. I got lucky enough to get an official Nintendo 64 controller. It was nothing special. I just accidentally went to the Nintendo website on a day where they had them in stock, and I immediately clicked. But also the Retro Fighters, remember when I went on that huge diatribe about the Nintendo 64 controller last season?
Yeah.
I guess George here was also looking for a similar solution. That's awesome. I love controllers. I love different controllers. I love how different controllers work.
Magical Sword people, I don't even think they can see, but you have like right behind you a whole like thing of controllers right over there.
Yeah, I mean, when I start doing the unboxing videos and the camera's over there, not over there, they'll see that in the background. But I just think controllers are so interesting and even pretty beautiful. And I have all these arcade sticks down here, which I'll initially or eventually put into the system. But yes, cool, George. That's awesome. So glad you found it. They make I think the version they make now, Retro Fighters, is even better than the version I have. The one I have still requires a dongle, and I think they make a full Bluetooth Switch compatible one. Hopefully that's the one George got.
Nice. Awesome.
Cool.
So that's our listener feedback. So I guess we're just going to hop right in to the topic, which is
Kady,
obviously... Yep.
Tell me about the Kokiri.
The Kokiri. Well, first off, I want to start with the Kikwi.
Oh, okay.
So I want to start with the Kikwi just because they are technically...
I'm sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
I have technically found out they are not at all related.
Right.
To the Kokiri and the Koroks. So I think we get them out of the way first, and then we'll hop right in.
Let's do it.
The only association is their association with the forest and nature.
Yep.
That is it.
Yep.
Kikwi show up only in Skyward Sword and are not associated, although their names are very similar. I want to make that known. Their names are similar, if no one has realized
the individual Kikwi's names are similar to
no,
other ones?
No, the fact that Kikwi sounds like Kokiri.
Yes, yeah.
So, it has... I do not own a copy of the encyclopedia.
Oh,
but
really?
Yeah, I don't own one, but I found a PDF online, so
okay.
I went through that.
I gotta get it for you.
Yeah.
I don't know where... Oh, mine's over there. Okay.
And I went through that to learn a little bit about them, starting with the fact that whereas like the Kokiri and technically Koroks as well are in the Hylian category of races, the Kikwi are in the other races category.
Yes, that would make sense.
Yeah, they're completely different.
Because Kokiri, we were jumping ahead a little, but they come from Hylians.
They do.
Which we'll address later, I'm sure.
We will get into it, which was a huge surprise for me.
Yeah.
So the Kikwi are among 5 of the surface races that joined Goddess Hylia in the war against the evil forces of Demise, and then from there have kind of went about their life until they have to help Link again with everything.
Yeah.
They tend to be very skittish, very shy. They look like penguins, which is cute. They do.
It makes, I think, like the general, if you're playing Skyward Sword, they fill a similar role to the game as Kokiri and Koroks do.
Yeah.
Which is why it's easy to kind of think that maybe they're the same.
Yeah.
But they technically have fur and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, they're like fully animals. And then they have the big plants on their back that they hide underneath when they're nervous. And they're also herbivores, which will also tie in when I talk about the Koroks later.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait.
They also, I found out, are tend to be named for types of tea.
Yeah. Yeah, I found this too.
Yeah, which I think is really cute. If you were a tea, what would you like to be? Or if you were a tea. If you were a Kikwi, what tea would you be named after?
I don't know. Actually, I just had a new one the other day. Michelle, I guess, poured it for me or whatever, and I can't even remember what it was. But it was very good. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't speak to that. Oh, well, I do kind of know.
Yeah.
When it comes to the different teas, the oolongs and the whatevers and the herbals and the blah, blah, blahs and whatever, that's all fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I go to a tea shop, which I probably do once every 3 months, I go to tea shops less than coffee shops.
Yeah.
When I go to a proper tea shop, my favorite thing to get is a freshly ground matcha, where it's the actual green tea leaf. It smells like grass. It smells like fresh cut lawn. It kind of is almost a little unappetizing, but as soon as you start sipping it, it's just delicious. And so my go-to, and I kind of like that like quick caffeine hit that you get from the more juicy leaf because it's not dried out. And so I do like a good matcha.
I would have to be chai.
Okay, sure.
I love sweet tea. So I like regular teas. Black tea is like my favorite, like just plain tea.
Yeah.
But chai and Thai tea, love them both very much. They're so good.
Maybe it was oolong something, I don't know, that Michelle gave me the other day. But the one thing you have to be careful with matcha is that if you get it, no hate on Starbucks or anything, but if you get like the Starbucks version or if you kind of get the matcha you buy at the grocery store, that's essentially like hot chocolate. It's just it's ground down to like a little fine powder. It's really about, that's fine. I'll still get those sometimes for the flavor, but that freshly ground, leaf juices coming out of the pulp as it's right there as you're drinking it is really something special.
Nice.
So I guess I'd be Machai. Yeah.
So I'm stuttering a lot today. It's okay.
That's fine.
We'll just hang it.
Our
The
audience is judging you.
I know, I could feel it. Remember how I just talked earlier in this episode about how
It's okay.
judgmental everyone is in the Zelda community?
I feel like you're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, there's almost a book report. There's a lot of information here. It's all good.
Yeah.
So
So that's all I really had to say about the Kikwi.
yeah. Kikwi are herbivores, which struck me weird because it's like, well, they're part plant though, so I don't want to get into that. But like, that's a little weird.
Yeah, it doesn't really go much into it, but like I said, that'll come in handy when we talk about the Koroks. So I want to just jump straight to the Kokiri.
Yeah.
This is where the meat of everything is, really.
Yes.
And the Kokiri are interesting because they first appear in Ocarina, and then you also kind of get an appearance in Wind Waker by the ghost of a Kokiri.
Indeed you do.
Which I have read about, but I haven't gotten to that point yet.
No, yeah, you're still maybe 2 or 3 dungeons away if you're, just finished the Deku Tree dungeon or whatever?
I just finished that. They're the children of the forest, which I think is really fun. And you mentioned way back when we were doing the Ocarina stuff that the creation of them was kind of based on Peter Pan.
From a design spec point of view, from like a just what's the aesthetic? Yes. Yeah.
Like the
not
aesthetic
in game, but like Nintendo was like
the original idea for them when they were like on the storyboard. So they created this race, and race is even a strong word, I would say. This group of children named the Kokiri. And I even put some quotations here. I full essay. So from the Zelda Encyclopedia on page 50, it goes completely deep dive into the Kokiri, which is really interesting. And this is where it directly tells you the Kokiri are Hylians. It says they trace their roots back to a time when the Highlands were first developing their civilization, building cities, and relying on a less natural way of life.
Yep.
Because of that, the Kokiri decided to distance themselves from Highlands, exiling themselves to the forest to make their own way of life closer to nature.
Mm-hmm.
That is really cool. However, it raises a lot of questions because how old are the Kokiri?
Well, right. Yeah, they're a childlike race.
Yeah, they're children that stay children.
You don't age.
They don't age, but then if they don't age and...
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Like, did a bunch of kids run into the woods and then stop aging?
Yeah. Are they all orphans? Did they run into the woods and get taken in? Because this is also what it says later on, is that... oh gosh, where is it?
Well, non-Kokiri,
This, when Hyrule Field and the forest meet, Highlands who wander into the Lost Woods turn into monsters.
Yeah.
Adults into Stelfos, and children into Skull Kids. This is also in the Zelda Encyclopedia.
Yeah, that could be. I thought they turned into plants. That's what I said a few episodes ago. But no, maybe that's what it is.
At least from the Zelda Encyclopedia, that's what it says. So, adults cannot exist there. So they can't have more children to continue this race.
Right.
So a bunch of kids wandered in, and were these all the original kids, and then every kid that wandered in ever since get turned into Skull Kids?
Well,
where is the line there?
I think that line, there's a moment somewhere. I don't know if it's in the Ocarina of Time manga, which is like borderline canon, borderline not, but I think the Kokiri are specifically protected, you could say, or their whole non-aging thing. Yes, it happens in the Lost Woods, but it's by way of the protection of the Deku Tree or something like that. Which actually is weird because then when the Deku Tree dies, they stay kids. It's not like they start growing. Maybe Deku Tree like put a spell on the woods and it just stays there.
I always took it as that. But where I'm kind of coming from with this is, are these the original kids that they went into the forest before the Kokiri were a thing? And then the Deku Tree was like, okay, I like that you guys appreciate nature. You're all children and orphans or whatever. We're going to put this spell. And now, from this point onwards, any other kid that wanders in gets turned into a Skull Kid.
That's how I interpret it.
Yeah. So then, is Link an original?
Well, right. And that's the tricky thing. I think that's what the reason Link assumes he is Kokiri and why the other Kokiri assume it. So he's an outcast in the beginning of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a fairy.
He doesn't have a fairy. And he doesn't have hair like theirs either.
Yeah.
And I think Link was based on the Ocarina of Time manga. Link's mom. There's actually a comic book that portrays this too, not just the manga comic, not just the manga graphic novel. Link's mom runs into the woods with Link during a battle after a battle.
Oh.
Link's dad actually dies in this battle.
Yeah.
It's the army or the fight for something, who knows what, but it's pre-Ganondorf. Um, she runs into the woods, meets the Deku Tree, and basically says, "Please, please, please, take care of my child."
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing, but the Deku Tree says, "Sure, no problem." And maybe the Deku Tree makes an exception, brings Link into that Kokiri
Yeah.
spell, because then the mom passes away.
I see. I love that. I love that thought because that's the whole thing too. With it says you only become a true Kokiri once you've been granted a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning of the game, there's that one kid that's constantly being like, "You're not a real Kokiri. Like you're the outcast. You're the outsider here." Even after Link gets the fairy, and that
Yep.
would make a lot of sense because he's not really a Kokiri, and also why he leaves and kind of has that feeling that he's meant to do more. He's meant to be more. He's not. He doesn't fit there, I
Right.
guess. Which also kind of goes into the fact that the Kokiri believe that they will, I guess they believe, but they're also told that they will die if they leave the Lost Woods.
Right.
And it says in the encyclopedia the reason that the Deku Tree tells them that isn't that they're going to go and immediately perish, although he doesn't tell them that.
Oh, it's that they age.
It's that they will age, and the Deku Tree's powers cannot reach to stop it, and they will eventually die. Not that they'll just go out and wither.
Right. No, that's cool. I love that. So maybe, yeah, maybe, at the end of, I remember at our Ocarina episode, we were like, at the ending, why are there some Kokiri out at the festival?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're willing to age for a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then go back. Maybe they've
That's what I'm
learned.
thinking.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. And also, you pointed out a couple episodes back how important it was with Saria's relationship with Link, because she knew that in so many ways he would not be able to return because he would continue to grow. And for creatures like the Kokiri who have been alive for hundreds of years, someone's lifetime is a blink of an eye.
It's a blink, yeah.
Right? And so maybe in some ways, when you're used to having 9,000 days in your life, someone aging to the age of 40, 50, or 60 or 70 or whatever does feel like, yeah, you go out and basically immediately die in some ways, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's also why it's so interesting when he does leave and he begins to age and he comes back. It's to them, it's like, oh, you left for, oh, you were gone like a couple hours and now you're a completely different person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some don't even recognize him, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Final kind of thing I have here, the Deku Tree, specifically in Ocarina of Time, they call him saying that he is our father. He's our father. He's our guardian. He gave life to all of us.
Gave life because that spell keeps them not aging or keeps them alive or something. Yeah,
and that they make a direct tie that Kokiri have ties to the fairies and just ties to fairies in general, which I think also is why they are given fairies, but like from a standpoint of looking at them from the game when they were being originally created, being like, okay, there's these magical like little characters that have some like kind of magic tied to them. They live in the woods. Okay, they're basically like fairies. Let's make them not fairies and give them fairies. I think it's interesting.
I just realized something. Where do you think Navi comes from?
That's a great question.
Because we're introduced to her at the beginning of the game, just flying to the Deku Tree. Did she come from the forest, or did she come from the castle? Did she come from somewhere else? Was she summoned?
Yeah, I always thought it was interesting too. With they have the great fairies. They have the really big ones. So
Yes.
do all fairies come from the great fairies? Do they create them with magic and then send them out to the world? And
Yeah, they might. That's interesting.
then is it kind of like a Skyloft, or what are they called? The birds in Skyward Sword.
Oh yeah. Wait, no, I forgot to. Yeah,
Is it like a
Loftwings.
loft wing situation where it's like you just are intrinsically tied with one of these fairies and it'll come to you when the moment is right and you will have this like eternal bond?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is, and just all the Kokiri, since they're hundreds of years old, it's happened.
Yeah.
Right? And Link's only been there. Well, now, so that's weird. So, well, also one thing that's a little interesting is Link is like an infant when he's brought to the the woods, but when we meet him, he's roughly 7 years old. So he aged a little.
Yeah,
the Deku
he
Tree's
would
like,
have
well, we'll
to
let him age up
age.
for a little bit, and then we'll freeze him.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Maybe that's why. But also, could it be a thing of maybe the Kokiri are all children that have been brought to the forest looking for like a sanctuary? And then the other, like the ones that turn into Skull Kids, are those that are going and just like messing around, trying to mess with the forest, or just kids that come from good homes and are just running in. It brings a lot of questions.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's one. It's also interesting because Link. So if the Kokiri were originally Hylians, and Link is a Hylian, but he's come to the forest, I guess you could say, later than them.
Uh-huh.
He still has his orange hair. It's not like they all have green hair, and it's not like they're going through generations of evolution.
Well, I think there's some that have blonde hair.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that one girl has blonde hair and stuff. You're
Yeah,
right. Wait, is it only Saria that has green hair?
I think she's the only one that has green hair.
Whoa, that was a full.
The rest of them have blonde hair.
Wow, I just painted that memory over. Yeah, you're right. No, you're fine. Okay, nope, I don't have a thing.
Oh,
I was gonna say, like, is them getting green hair them getting closer to becoming what will eventually be the Koroks and stuff like that?
Yeah, and maybe Saria is the one that's been there the longest. Maybe she is the only one that was a part of the original.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a big.
And
maybe,
that's why
she
knows, like, when they leave, they age, and they don't die instantly. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I think if we were about to transition to Koroks, I think this would be a good time to take a break.
Yep, that's what I was just thinking.
Because one of the hardest pills to swallow for some Zelda fans is the knowledge of, wait, the humanoid Kokiri turn into those weird little seeds that dance around that have leaves for faces? How does that happen? And that happens in the
so it happens through magic.
You've experienced the Koroks in Wind Waker now.
Yes.
But you first experienced them in Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
And then, of course, in Tears of the Kingdom.
It was a huge surprise.
To see them in Wind Waker?
Yeah.
Where they originated again.
Uh-huh. They're so cute. They look just as cute.
They almost look identical. It's almost the same models.
They look amazing.
Yeah. All right, cool. I guess we'll get into that when we get back, yes?
Yeah. We'll see you on the other side.
Hey, Kady.
Hey. Welcome to another Zelda podcast.
Oh, my gosh.
We're back from the break.
Back from the break.
Woohoo. We are going to jump straight into the Kokiri because... we're going to start...
The Koroks.
The Koroks because they stem from the Kokiri. That's what I was trying to say. According to the Wind Waker and all of the other lore books, they are directly descended. They show up in Wind Waker for the first time, but they also are in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and they show up in Age of Calamity. So it's a blast. Was interesting to see that they weren't in Echoes of Wisdom because they end up putting the Deku in there instead.
Right.
But still really cool.
Yeah, and Breath of the Wild is reasonably thousands of years after Wind Waker. So also if we went from Ocarina of Time, Kokiri, and they evolved into the Koroks kind of have maintained in their current state for thousands of years too, by the way.
Yeah, and I would argue though, okay.
Ooh.
First.
Did I jump ahead?
No. You don't have my notes in front of you. You can't. Don't feel bad.
All right.
I was just gonna say. So the reason that the Kokiri change into the Koroks in the first place is because the entire world gets flooded, and they need to find a way to survive. So it says they evolve. I would assume that the Deku Tree uses some kind of magic, puts a spell on them to become truly part of the forest, and they become the little guys that we know.
Yeah, I'd like to mention real quick, what we know about our conventional knowledge of evolution would suggest that that's almost like a de-evolution to go from a humanoid type character down to this little seedling. But I don't think we're talking about that kind of evolution here. I think we're talking about magical choices and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I would argue why they would keep that shape if theoretically this was like actual timeline stuff and then we get Breath of the Wild. If you think about it, they don't need to really eat.
Right.
They can fly around. They can leave the forest now and not age.
Right.
So there's just a lot of things there that I feel like they are freer than ever.
And I don't even know if there's really like, is there ever a Korok that says like my dad did this or my son did this? Like, Do they have generations? I'm starting to
I
wonder.
think they do, because for some reason, I want to say that there was some that say stuff like
Right.
that. And then that would also raise the point that now they're able to evolve and have children and actually, like, have normal lives now because they're not just stuck as these forever forest children that can't leave the forest or do anything outside of the forest and they gotta hide away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so the Koroks are still led by the Deku Tree. They still kind of see him as a father figure to them, which also ties in, are these the exact same Kokiri?
Right.
Um,
Wind Waker doesn't take place too long after Ocarina. Maybe it's 100 years or more, but it's not like thousands.
yeah.
It's possible that it's lightly the same Deku Tree. Oh no, wait! Oh my gosh, am I stretching here? Is the new Deku Tree in Wind Waker the little baby sprout in Ocarina at the end of Ocarina?
Maybe, because on Wind Waker, they do that whole ceremony where they go and they plant to start new Deku trees and, like, new trees around.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, so maybe maybe it's a physically different tree, but the spirit of the Deku tree can generationally move through from one tree to another or something. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which would be interesting. And I want to point out, too, if we're doing the timeline order and we're saying that Wind Waker is, like, in the middle, it would make sense then why the world went from being flooded to being connected again, because that's the whole plan of the Koroks and the Deku Tree is, if we plant enough trees, then their roots will eventually go through and tie and bring all the continent back together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, clearly it worked. I don't know how they got there for that, but it worked.
Well, let's reverse engineer this a little. So the flood happens because the three goddesses are trying to like trap Ganondorf,
Uh-huh.
and that's because that's in the timeline where there isn't a Link to protect them.
Yeah.
It's the one where Link fails in Ocarina, and so because Ganondorf's forces are rising up again, the goddesses say, "All right, everybody, go to the top of the mountains. We're going to flood all of Hyrule." Can't the goddesses just unflood Hyrule then later?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the Deku know this, maybe they don't.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's part of the reason why they gain the ability to fly around with their little leaf propellers, is to go from island to island and plant these seeds.
I see.
Which is the ceremony that they do every year, and you have like a whole quest line where they have to be all planted at the same time, and if one batch is not good, then they have to wait a whole other year. So the trees are withering, and the only thing that'll help them is that the water from the forest haven. And so you go around, and you have 30 minutes on the Wii. You have 20 minutes, I believe, on the GameCube.
Okay.
To go around and water these 11 different trees in order for it to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's really cool. It's a whole thing. On a cuter note with the Koroks, much like the Kikwi are named after types of teas, the Koroks are named after types of trees, specifically in Wind Waker. So they all have different tree and like wood names, which I think is cool.
That's cool.
And for directly where they come from, the Koroks come from Kokiri, or Koropukuru. That's what it is. It's little creatures that hide in butterbur plants in Japanese folklore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they like have direct ties, and it's also why they're known as the spirits of the forest.
I see. I have one here for magical sword people.
Which I think is fun that they go from the children of the forest to the spirits of the forest. As if they've almost passed on.
Yeah, right. I think that actually really tracks. That actually makes quite a bit of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The children of the forest aren't quite part of the forest yet, right?
Yeah.
They're just the children in the forest, and now these spirits, these essences, are literally part of the forest.
Mm-hmm. They make a little jingling bell sound whenever they walk, which I think is really cute.
Yeah, I know. I always wondered like what was going on there.
Yeah. And they are made of really light wood, so that's why they're able to propel themselves. Yeah, I had this in my notes. It is the Great Deku Tree's hope that the islands will join as one land by planting the trees together. They are wooden, but they have the little leaf masks on them. And apparently the Koroks make these leaf masks themselves to help depict their personality.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is
because maybe they don't even have faces anymore.
Yeah, they don't even have faces.
Oh, this is awesome.
So they make these little leaf masks for themselves. So some of them look a little bit more sly. Some of them are a little bit more timid. It's just so they can, off the forefront, be like, this is how I am as a person.
Because if you think about a Korok without that mask, I mean, that probably totally tracks. That's their normal, I guess, natural state.
Yeah.
Because they don't need eyes, they don't need mouths, they don't need any of those things. They're just
Yeah.
sentient
They're
little
just
plants.
logs. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Very cool. They also do not tend to appear to people, which is why it's so interesting. Well, okay, so we'll start with Wind Waker.
Yeah.
They only show up once the Deku Tree is like, it's okay, my children, like, he will not hurt you. They all show up. Link is surprised. He has, like, the big camera zoom in, zoom out moment, like, whoa, whoa. And there are the Deku. However, then when it comes to breath, it's not a thing of, oh, we are hiding from you in the leaves, and then we show up because Deku Tree said it's okay. They are surprised that Link is able to see them when they're just walking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes this whole thing of, do they have this innate ability, whether for preserving themselves or just from being spirits, so to speak? Only certain people can see them.
Yeah.
Because at first I was thinking, oh, Link is the only one who can see him. Maybe it's tied back to these other things, but that's not true. There's a random merchant you can find named August who mentioned seeing Hetsu. And is like, did you see that giant, like, dancing green thing? Like, I tried telling people about it, but no one knew or no one could see him. And it also points out in Age of Calamity, which, how canon is that? We don't know.
Sure.
They go to the Lost Woods, and Link is able to see Hetsu the entire time, and it isn't until Link points it out to the group, then they can see him.
Oh, wow.
Which is very fascinating.
My impression was always that it's that, like, people just don't notice. Like, they're looking at them, but they're not seeing them.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as a way of, some people just have more of a natural ability to see into, like, a different plane of existence than others. Kind of like some people, like, this is whether or not you believe this kind of stuff in real life, but are tied to, like, doing, like, tarot cards or, like, that kind of stuff. Some people are just more naturally able to, like, know this, and maybe that's because with Link, he has all these different lives. But then you could also argue, then why didn't Zelda see it? Maybe it's because Link was a part of the Kokiri at one point.
Right.
But then why can August see it? So it's a lot of just, like, guessing, and I kind of like that they leave it up to interpretation there as well.
I'm fine with it too, yeah.
Yeah. Last little thing I have, before we can, just keep on chatting about whatever.
Yeah, no, this is getting good.
Yeah, why I was saying the Kikui being herbivores at the beginning was very interesting and fun, of why they are not related to the Koroks. It's because the Koroks, this is in the encyclopedia, because they are plant-based creatures, they fear vegetarians.
And that's why they aren't in Skyward Sword? Did I hear you right?
Oh, I don't know about the Skyward Sword.
Oh,
just because
herbivores.
Because they're plant-based creatures, they are afraid of vegetarians. That's a big fear of theirs.
Okay,
They don't like people that eat veggies. So I just think that's a fun little point that they put, like, right at the end.
I see. Yeah.
But yeah, those are my, like, big notes about the Koroks. But I don't know. I've always found them to be just such cute and interesting creatures. Finding out that they were the Kokiri beforehand kind of adds a lot to it as well for me. I hope to see them more in, like, newer releases. I think it's interesting that they're starting to switch to the Deku, though.
Well, I don't know, and we don't know really where Echoes of Wisdom is necessarily, like, on the timeline. But Echoes of Wisdom does feel more like a throwback.
It does
story,
because it feels more like in the time when the Kokiri existed, and then it was the Deku scrubs.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, and I don't think, and the Deku are a totally different race than the Kokiri or the Koroks, and so they could exist at the same time, but it does also feel like Nintendo's pretty much doubled down on this Korok aesthetic.
The cats are fighting.
Cat fight. We got a cat fight in the studio. I was getting a little distracted there as I was trying to put this sentence together. Oh well, we'll just let it be. By the way, I don't know. The cat snuck into the studio here. I think they pushed their way through the edge here. But the Koroks. I totally lost my. Oh, it feels like Nintendo's picked this as their aesthetic for the last. I mean, it's been that way almost 20 years now. if Wind Waker, which is almost 20 years old, was the beginning of this aesthetic and they just stuck with it all the way through, Tears, I feel like that's what Nintendo is going with. There's really no Koroks or Kokiri in Echoes of Wisdom, huh? I guess from a gameplay point of view, how are you going to make these little things?
Yeah,
But
I was going to say
know.
from a gameplay, and I also, thinking back, wouldn't be as surprised if they just took them out for Echoes, because it came right after Tears and people were getting really fed up with the Koroks and Tears.
In like real world, really?
Yeah, in real world, because of all like the different quests, people were like strapping them to stuff and shooting them into space. They were talking bad about them online. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, okay, maybe we switch gears just for a game or two and then we'll bring them back.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, Nintendo, I'm saying this with love, asked for it when they made it so that you could pick up a Korok and attach them as an item to like the whole Ultra Hand stuff. You know what I mean? The backpacks.
It's honestly some of my favorite content that came out of Tears. I'm not gonna lie. Was seeing the things that people were doing with the Koroks. That being said, I love the Koroks. They're very dear to me. I would love to get like a little plushie of one if I can find it. It'd be great.
I'm sure. Oh, they 100% they exist, right?
Oh yeah.
They're so easy to sew those things. I see. Well, I mean, where do you think the Korok go from here? Do they just stay our little seeds? Are they that for thousands of years now? Is that what they are? Spirits of the forest?
I kind of hope so, honestly. I feel like they've reached their peak. I don't want to see them come back down. I like them there. I think they're peak character design, honestly. They're fun. They're cute. They got like a sad, tragic backstory to them.
Yeah, I get it. I like it. They talk enough. I guess I am, well, actually, one thing we didn't fully double down on was the transition, the Fado. Because you haven't really gotten there in the game yet, so you haven't really experienced it yet in Wind Waker. The Kokiri. If I remember correctly, I haven't played Wind Waker since our Wind Waker HD episode a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I think you literally see a human style.
You do. I've saw pictures
Kokiri.
Online. It's like a ghost version of one that Link has to interact with, and he talks about like how they evolved.
Yeah, and he was the last one, and so then when you bring in, is it not Fado? Fado's the Kokiri.
It was like Mifo or something.
Yeah, Mido. You bring Mido in, who becomes your kind of like +1 character for a dungeon or two. That's kind of like that's the last time you see a human style Kokiri, but even that Kokiri's passed away as a spirit.
Yeah.
So maybe but it's not an adult Kokiri. It's still a kid-looking Kokiri. Yeah. So it's not like the Deku Tree said, all right, I'll lift the spell. All of you can live out your lives, but when you pass, you'll become Koroks or something, like the spirits. You'll go from the children of the forest to the spirits. That had to have been a choice. When you get there, I can't remember. Pay attention as to why Fado says he's in, I think it's the Earth Dungeon or whatever is where he's at. We'll have to find out.
Yeah. No, I will say one of my favorite moments so far playing Wind Waker is when you rescue Mido from the Forbidden Woods and he plays his little tune and the Koroks start singing with him. Yeah. I was not expecting singing and I loved it. Yep. It was so cute.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Cool. Well, maybe that's all we have to say about the Koroks. Yeah. I don't know. I'm wondering if there's I'm struggling right now because my brain feels like it has 20 questions, but I don't know what the questions are. But I guess we'll have them answered as we continue to play more and more Zelda games. Yeah. Truthfully, my emotion right now is I want to go grab my Zelda encyclopedia, which is sitting right over there. And be like, wait, what happened? How did this? What?
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna flip through. So, before we end, though, David, where can they find you?
The listeners can find me online on all the social media platforms at Raptor Paint. And that's really it. That's fine. I could talk about my other shows. I used to do that a little bit more, but still making some other shows out there. But really, anything I'm making for 6.5 Media is also on the bottom of the Another Zelda podcast website.
It's great. Go check it out. As for me, I just wanted to add that. It's great. Go check it out. You can find me on Instagram at Kady Stargazing. And
it's great. Go check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. You can find me on my website at kadyroberts.com, Kady. And then for Another Zelda Podcast, you can find us on pretty much everything at Another Zelda Podcast or Another Zelda Pod.
We're only Another Zelda Pod on X. Everything else is Another Zelda Podcast. So almost at this point, I'm willing to just say, like, hey, we're Another Zelda Podcast.
Yeah, there you go. You'll figure it out. It's awesome.
Cool. All right, well, we'll see you not next week, but next episode, Kady, where we're going to do a good old-fashioned Hey Listen episode.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You've never been a part of one of these yet.
I've not.
They're a lot of fun. I think it'll be the 4th one we've done total. We usually try to do at least one every season or two. And because we've just had so much listener feedback, I guess building up that we would like to talk about, address, and read, it'll be essentially it's a guest feedback. Listen to me. It's like I'm at work right now. A listener feedback episode where we'll be addressing all the different things that people have, thoughts and comments they've had about the show. And so that'll be a nice, fun, low-key episode. I'll see you in 2 weeks, Kady.
Yeah, we'll see you.